Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to revision hour for senior high school economics students. Before I start today's lesson, let me do a bit of introduction of my book and myself. My name is Akrofi Benjamin, an economics teacher in Ebri Girls Senior High School and the author of the Key to A1 Economics Test and Question and Answers book for senior high schools in West Africa and, for that matter, Ghana. This is the front cover. This is the front cover and then the back cover as well. At the back cover, you see that we have some new books that we have introduced. We have introduced into the publication, and that includes the Key to A1 Accounting Textbook for senior high schools. I must say that we also have the question and answers here. You may see it, the question and answers. This is the front cover, the Key to A1 question and answers. This is the front cover and then the back cover as well. Now, for first years who have just come to senior high schools, I admonish you to get a copy of the Key to A1 Economics Textbook and question and answers. For these books are the books of today, and they are the books of your time. Try and get one, and trust me, you will be fine. It's an interesting one that you must get one, and trust me, it shall be well with you. The revision hour is purposely designed for economic students in senior high schools in West Africa and, for that matter, Ghana, just to address certain salient areas in all the various topics that are considered as gray areas, which sometimes baffle students. And for that matter, we have decided to organize this for you so that we'll do a good revision with you in all the various topics that you have covered in school. And those topics are usually the gray areas. We touch the gray areas so that you'll be fine. Trust me, if you continue to remain with us, you will be fine so far as economics is concerned, so far as accounting is concerned, and so far as geography is also concerned. Today, we want to look at the topic, illustration of how price elasticity of demand coefficient becomes zero. That is perfectly inelastic. And also how the price elasticity of demand coefficient becomes infinity. And that is perfectly elastic. Before we even move on, let me move on to the second slide and do a little revision with you with regards to the interpretation of price elasticity coefficients for all the various types of price elasticity of demand. If you calculate the price elasticity of demand coefficient and the answer is greater than 1, then we say that the commodity in question is fairly elastic, or it has fairly elastic demand. If the elasticity coefficient is less than 1, then we say that the commodity has fairly inelastic demand. If the elasticity coefficient is equal to 1, then we say it is units or unitary elastic or it has units or unitary elastic demand. If the elasticity coefficient is equal to 0, then we say the commodity in question has perfectly inelastic demand. And then the last one, if the commodity is perfectly elastic, then it means that the elasticity coefficient will be equal to infinity. These are the various interpretations, to the various types of price elasticity of demand if you calculate the elasticity coefficients. Now, we want to move on to the third slide, and I'll show you the situation or the circumstance under which we shall have perfectly inelastic demand, that is ED being 0, and then perfectly elastic demand, that is ED being infinity. Take note, the ED is used to denote the elasticity, price elasticity of demand coefficient. So we'll move on to the third slide. The third slide. So in the third slide here, I have some questions here. The preamble to the question reads, calculate the price elasticity of demand coefficient from the following diagrams and interpret your answer. So in question 1, we see that we have a vertically sloping demand curve. In this question 1, you see that price has increased from 5 cedis to 8 cedis, and the quantity demanded remains the same at 10. So I want to move on to the next slide so that I'll show you, I'll do the calculation with you, after which we'll come back to the second question. So we'll move on to the third slide where we'll do the calculation. So here, what I'll do is that I'll pick my pen nicely and then go ahead to solve the question with you. So to calculate the elasticity, we'll employ the simplified price elasticity of demand formula, and that is giving us ED is equal to change in quantity demanded of the commodity over change in price of the commodity times the initial price over the initial quantity demanded. Now from the diagram, we see that price, we can go to the diagram, we see that price has increased from 5 cedis to 8 cedis. And so the old price is 5, that's the initial price, and then the new price is 8. So we want to pick the items here. So we'll have our price here is equal to, that's the initial price is 5 cedis, and then the initial quantity demanded, we are picking these items because that's what we are going to put in the formula. Initial quantity demanded is 10. We saw that quantity demanded has not changed or did not change. And then we'll calculate the change in price. Our change in price here is price had moved from 5 cedis to 8 cedis, and therefore the new price is 8 cedis minus 5 cedis, and which gives us 3 cedis. Then we need to calculate the change in quantity demanded. So the change in quantity demanded is equal to 0. Why is it equal to 0? Because we saw in the diagram, question 1, that even when price has changed from 5 cedis to 8 cedis, the quantity demanded remains the same at 10 units. And so we say that the quantity demanded, change in quantity demanded is 0. If you like, the new quantity, you can say that the new quantity is 10, then the old one is 10. And so when you subtract 10 from 10, you get 0. Basically, when price has changed, the quantity demanded remains the same at 10 units, and therefore the change in quantity demanded is equal to 0. Now, if we substitute these variables, these numbers into the equation, the formula, we have ED is equal to change in the quantity demanded, which was 0, divided by the change in price, which is 3. Now take note, if you have 0 divided by any number, the answer is 0. And so if you multiply this by the other half, that is the other half, the other part of the equation, we'll see that price here, the initial price is 5 cedis divided by the initial quantity demanded, which is 10 cedis. And because this side is going to be 0 times 5 divided by 10, the results will be equal to 0. Therefore, we say that the ED, the elasticity of demand, the elasticity of demand coefficient from question 1 is going to be 0. And this is interpreted as perfectly inelastic demand. Perfectly inelastic demand. So it means the commodity in question 1 has perfectly inelastic demand. Let us move on to question 2. In question 2, so we'll go back to the question. In question 2, we see that price remains the same at 5 cedis, and the quantity demanded has changed or has increased from 10 units to 14 units. So we employ the same formula. Move on to the next slide. So once again, the simplified price point elasticity of demand is given as ED is equal to change in quantity demanded over change in price times the initial price over the initial quantity demanded. From the question, we see that the price That is the initial price is 5 cedis. And then the initial quantity demanded, well, let's go back to the diagram so that we look at it. The initial quantity demanded is 10 units. We have seen it. The initial quantity demanded is 10 units. And so the initial quantity demanded, we say, is 10 units. 10 units. And then, so we can calculate the change in quantity demanded. So change in the quantity demanded is equal to 14 minus 10 unit. 14 unit minus 10 unit. That is the new quantity demanded minus the old quantity demanded. And that gives us 4 units. 4 units. So now we have to look for the other variable in the formula, which is change in price. So change in price here, we'll say is going to be 0. Because from the diagram, let's go back to it. From the diagram, we'll see that price has not changed. Price remains the same at 5 cedis, but the quantity is increasing. And so because price hasn't changed, we say that the change in price is 0. If you like, you say the old price is 5 cedis, the new price is 5 cedis, and when you subtract 5 from 5, we get what? 0. So the change in price is 0. Now we do a substitution of these numbers into the formula. So we substitute these numbers into the formula, and then we have ED is equal to change in the quantity demanded was 4 divided by 0. And this is where the infinity will come in. Any number divided by 0 is infinite. If you punch this into your calculator, you get math error, which means that the result here is limitless, and therefore it is infinite. You can't actually put a finger on this number. So when you multiply this by any other number, the initial price is 5 cedis and the initial quantity demanded is 10 units. Because this side is going to be infinite, when it is multiplied by the 5 divided by 10, we will get the result to be infinity. And this is the sign for the infinity. And so we'll say that the interpretation for this is that the commodity in question has perfectly elastic demand. Perfectly elastic demand. Let's take note of this. So this is the situation whereby the price elasticity of demand coefficient will be equal to infinity. When price remains the same,